The world is changing. It's time education changed too. As someone who has studied in international schools all of their life, I have understood how communities can best support their students. The do's and don'ts, so to say. The tips and tricks to a successful education. So, I titled my speech, Why International Schools Are Failing. Clickbait, perhaps. Sensationalism, maybe. But phrasing my topic in this way helped me investigate the challenges that international schools are facing. It allows me, a student, to explore and explain how the various stakeholders in our vibrant educational communities can adapt to this changing world by working together. Firstly, I want to propose a theory. I want to introduce a theory I came across on The International Educator, a theory proposed by Damien Baku, a head of an international school, one of a self-licking lollipop. A self-licking lollipop can be defined as an institution that offers benefits but exists mainly to perpetuate its own existence. In our case, parents send their children to prestigious schools. The high fees pay for the best teachers, facilities, and curriculum. Students can achieve high grades and apply to top universities. Therefore, the school's reputation is enhanced, more parents are attracted, the fees are raised, and so on. When confronted with a self-licking lollipop, the lickers, school administration, have two options. The first is to keep licking the lollipop, to increase marketing of academic achievements and perpetuate the current system. The second is to consume the lollipop, or even throw it away. Damien Baku affirmed, it can be distilled down to whether an international school is seriously committed about increasing diversity, inquiry, inclusivity, and social justice, or not. He acknowledged that increasing DEIJ can lead to lower test scores and less marketing as a consequence. But it boils down to this: whether international schools want to sell a mission or whether they want to sell machines. Whether international schools want to be a force to unite people of different cultures or perpetuate a continual system of wealth. These decisions impact the biggest stakeholders, the students. Personally, students are the most important and most affected group by a school's activity. Student-led initiatives play a huge role in growing international schools through service projects or innovative events. Newspapers, microfinance banks, awareness campaigns. These encapsulate one of the major differences between international schools and their local counterparts: the power of student agency. Student voice has led to campaigns across the world where international schools show support for each other through service projects or protests to raise awareness for climate change or fundraisers to support mental health. A recent study in Pennsylvania revealed a return of $6.69 for every $1 invested in student-led initiatives, a near 700% increase. These initiatives were linked to higher grades and attendance, as well as a decrease in child-endangering activity. There's no limit to how they can broaden a student's horizons, exposing them to new art, sports, and languages. Unfortunately, new regulations intended to support student projects are actually restricting them. A longer chain of command, greater supervision, and less investment have stifled creativity. This, like the self-licking lollipop, is a vicious spiral that cannot continue. Fewer projects leads to less recognition of students, lower inspiration in students, and ultimately no passion. A lack of passion means students in international schools fall behind their local counterparts. So, I spoke to over a dozen high school students across the world to understand how their schools can best support them. Firstly, each and every one of them, 100%, said that student-led projects are important. Why? It allows them to practice their independence, learn organizational and leadership skills for the future, and raise awareness and raise school spirit by inspiring the next generation. Well, my follow-up question was, how can schools support students? They said that schools should encourage collaboration, provide resources, financial support, expert guidance, and most importantly, propose new ideas that can develop student initiatives, not just work with them when it is advised in the curriculum. Evidently, without cooperation and a steady influx of ideas, students in international schools will not be exposed to the latest trends and movements around the globe. Which brings me to my next point. International schools are different from local schools. Only by understanding these differences can stakeholders in international schools appreciate what an international education entails. However, a lack of orientation sessions can lead to large knowledge gaps. My discussion with high school students revealed that 93% of them expressed concerns about the assessments they faced, and 85% of these concerns stem from struggling to understand the marking rubrics or from a lack of information. For example, new students may not recognize how their work is marked, and therefore how to achieve the highest grades. They might make the switch back to local schools because they are more familiar with the system. Well, I continued my discussion with the high school students, this time to gauge their academic interests, academic concerns, and I asked them if middle school, or the MYP in IB, prepared them for high school, the DP. Only 30% of the respondents said yes. The other 70% did not have clarity on subject choices or university options. They cited that more information sessions would bridge the large knowledge gap because A, middle school set unrealistic standards, and B, there was a large difference in how they're asked to think and process information. But let's not ignore the elephant in the room. The principal reason international schools are failing is none other than COVID-19. The transition from offline to online learning has been difficult for students, teachers, and parents. The greater workload and the cancellation of social learning sessions has worsened mental health issues such as anxiety and stress. To top it all off, many, if not most stakeholders, have cited that online classes lower the quality of learning. Well, in my final set of questions, in my final set of interviews with my high school students, I decided to ask them, well, how did the pandemic affect your learning experience? And these are some of their unadulterated word-for-word responses. They said it was harder to focus, that they spent more time going back to retain information, it slowed down their rate of learning, and it was harder to complete basic tasks. Well, my follow-up question was, you prefer offline or online learning? And as you can guess, 100% of them said they preferred offline learning. Why? Because it maximizes concentration, maintains a positive interaction with their teachers, and is a more productive environment to work in. Now, linking back to the first point that I brought up in relation to student agency and the power of student-led initiatives, I asked them, with COVID in mind, if they felt their voices were suppressed or encouraged. 85% of them said they were suppressed and said that COVID was used as an excuse to refute new ideas. Even when their schools did reconvene, they were distraught by the cancellation of school trips. These camps were the ideal time for them to get to know and work with their fellow students, enhance teacher-student relationships, and learn real-world skills. Unfortunately, there was no meaningful alternative provided, meaning that there was not just a knowledge gap, but a skill deficiency. And so, with my final question, I asked them, what can international schools do to offset the damage inflicted by the pandemic? Firstly, they need to provide extra content and resources with realistic support sessions. Secondly, create different tasks that do not require technology, and lastly, offer a low-stress schedule where students are not forced to attend all classes but still meet classroom expectations. Ultimately, I believe students and administration must hear my ideas since I speak from a student's perspective. While international schools are not necessarily failing, they are going through the toughest of times in recent memory and will continually face serious challenges. Talks like these are a way to start the conversation on how we can improve education for the next generation of students. We need to improve online learning, bridge knowledge gaps, and support student-led initiatives. But if there's anything I've learned from the past decade, it's that all of these problems can be solved with input from key stakeholders: students, parents, teachers, and administration. I've enjoyed my time at all of the international schools I've been to, and I hope they and others can perpetuate my experiences to the next generation of students and change education for the future. Thank you.